Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Gibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? It's real fun. Just like Mookie, I will sign. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, live on Substack, like we are each and every single week. Although timing is off, day is off, a lot of stuff going on this time of year. I will get into why we're about 30 minutes late. It was entirely my fault. So it happens. Life happens. Anyway, John Saponaro coming to you live from North Hollywood, California. That means my co-host, Matt Ibanez, holding things down, being very patient with me today, back in New Jersey. Ibby, it is New Year's Eve. We're a day early as far as the show is concerned because don't want to really do our show on a holiday or a day that most people start to celebrate a holiday, whatever the case may be. We have a lot to talk about in terms of rumors. We have a lot to talk about in terms of speculation. It's another week, though. Not a lot of substantive things to talk about with our New York Mets. Final episode of 2026. All of that said, man, how you doing?
I'm doing well, John. The chat is on fire to start, and it has been since we've been a little bit late.
Yeah, it's a good one. Early contender
Oh my God,
for comment of the day. John, you look like you're in the Russian mafia with that outfit. I'm not, but I can't dispute this other than to just say that I'm not. John is in former Yugoslavia gear. It's actually just like it's like a windbreaker. It's a vintage windbreaker that I got that's from like a car like an auto shop in Miami. But yeah.
Oh my God.
Lazy Mary,
Anyway.
John's New Year's resolution should be that he gets some fashion sense. I actually, I resent that tremendously. I have more fashion sense than I think most people I know. So
Oh my
you
God.
can disagree, but whatever. Anyway, how you doing?
Oh my God. I'm doing well, John. Well, yeah, I should even say, like, I'm doing better now. I was gonna open, if this was yesterday, I was gonna open by saying, I'm a sick man, literally and figuratively, because I am just getting through strep throat, and I'm also a sick man for having the show, wanting to do the show while having strep throat to talk about, I don't know, what ifs, because not much has gone on in the last week, but I love doing the show. It's Tuesday, not Wednesday. The red light's on. I want to hang out. I want to talk some Mets. I want to hang out with everyone in the chat and have a good time on this New Year's Eve. There's plenty of what ifs to dive into. So let's do it. Let's have some fun.
Just want to pull up a couple more here. Got Joe Prano. John dressed like he's using David Stern's hot, in quotation, stove for warmth. GSD over on Twitter. John Wick's crew. That works. Armand. John looks like the extra that dies playing a Russian mafia guy from a John Wick movie. Corey Holtz, tracksuit mafia tryout. John. Yeah. So lots of good stuff. I do appreciate. I do appreciate it. And honestly, shout out Lazy Mary. It's okay, John. I just wear jeans and hoodie, just giving you shit. Lazy Mary becoming a very good commenter as far as this show is concerned, and we appreciate it.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
We already kind of shot it out because we pulled up so many of these comments early, but Let's see if there's anybody we missed. Jeff Cohen is also here. I don't know if I pulled up something from Graphics Joker, but he's in the house as well. We have, let's see, Clink is here. Darren Rivera is here. Just pulled up Armand. We have Mike Laverty in the house. Ethan KL is here. I know I saw Chrissy is here. 3 margaritas deep from the bar, but popping in to say hello. We'll see how long that
Enjoy
lasts.
those drinks.
I love Graphics Joker saying LA traffic is the reason why I was late. Kinda. Actually, so I'm not gonna dispute that. Truman Quinn saying anybody who says North Hollywood really lives in Glendale. I actually do live in North Hollywood, not Glendale. So as far as that goes, what else do we have? What else? Matt Talks Rangers is here.
What up, Matt?
Will White in the house saying Happy New Year. Happy New Year to Will White as well. Tony HVAC is here. Non-Genarian is here. Nice to see Mickey
Tag's coming in hot. He wants that comment. He wants it. Oh my God.
You're gonna eat lightning and crap thunder, Rock.
Man,
You're a wrecking machine.
This is a tough one so far. We got a lot of good ones.
James Dowling is here. Okay. Ibby, there's a lot of places we can go with this podcast. We're gonna have some fun. I think, by the way, I think we got everybody who's here as far as commenters. That number will continue to grow. Sorry for being late in all seriousness. I did get stuck on the other side of town. I had to run a very important errand for my dog. She's a little under the weather. And I had to run over to the vet. All good. She should be fine. Anyway, my bad for being late. It's entirely my fault. Ibby, we are going to have some fun here with this show today because there's not a tremendous amount of news where our Mets are concerned. So look, I'm going to leave it up to you in terms of where we start. And then obviously the conversation, as it always does, thanks to the commenters, thanks to the people asking questions, throwing out there, everything in the comments, they've been lively to start. So we'll see where it goes. But I want to know where you want to start in terms of like earnestly talking about the Mets, because there's not really a lot that we can address. We could talk about the speculation. We could talk about the rumor, but we've talked so much about all of that already. I want to know where you think we should go as far as this, the start of the show is concerned.
Like I said to you in it was very hard making this week's thumbnail and the description and just to try to come up with some sort of bullet points to talk about because not much has gone on. I know I ended last show saying how I thought that there'd be something and something always happens, and something kind of like passively was dropped a little bit earlier this afternoon. Nothing really to go off of because, again, you nor I are very understanding of Japanese media and what to understand or what to trust in that sense. So I guess the place we can start is the idea of this deadline with Tatsuya Imai and how, it comes out today that the White Sox are said to be aggressively pursuing, but then something comes out later by a person who clearly isn't within media over there, has 119,000 followers, and says that the Mets are trying to move off of Kodai Senga to then bring in someone like Tatsuya Imai. And I guess that's where we can start with the idea of if they're in, do we trust that they're in? Do we think that they're in? Does it make sense if they're in? Like that whole discussion, I guess, is where we can kick off the talks today.
Sure. I mean, Armand saying Imai deadline is Friday at 5 p.m. Okomoto is the 4th at 5 p.m. It seems like the Mets aren't in on Okomoto, which I'm a little disappointed about. But to your point, we don't need to really talk about that right now. I don't know what to make of this Imai thing. And I want to hear from the commenters, too, about what you guys think. Look, Ibby, anytime you're getting a pitcher from Japan, there are kind of a wide spectrum of things that can happen as far as what that player turns out to be, right? I mean, if you go all the way back into the 90s and you talk about, Hideo Nomo, but then you talk about, the epic disappointment that was Hideki Arabu, RIP. Even with Kodai Senga as Mets fans, we've kind of run the gamut in terms of the ultimate, like, wow, this could be great, to wow, this hasn't really worked out. And that should never sour you from staying active in the market, obviously, because every player, every pitcher, every person is different. But I don't know. It seems strange to me on one hand, Ibby, that the Mets would move on from Kodai Senga, who we've seen the best of Kodai Senga in a Mets uniform. We've seen the worst of Kodai Senga in a Mets uniform. To go and bring in a player who will probably cost them more money, who may have a similar spectrum in terms of what their ceiling and their floor is. Now, the only other thing I will offer here is that Imai is 27 years old. So he does fit the time frame of, where Stearns would want to go to necessarily give more money. His age is a factor. But Ibby, let's not make a mistake here. This is not a player the caliber of Yoshinobu Yamamoto in terms of what we think is a instantly translatable skill set to a guy who might be an ace. He might be, but we've already seen Kodai Senga has shown flashes where he pitched to a 1.92 ERA, and that's certainly ace potential. So, I don't know how much I buy into it, where maybe Imai is a number 3 starter in the major leagues. Well, I don't know. Kodai Senga, if you just average out the good and the bad and you kind of just take him as a whole, he's probably a 3 or a 4. So I'm not sure that the Mets would move on from Kodai Senga, trade him, maybe let's say eat a little bit of that money to trade him as well because he's coming off of such a bad year and an unhealthy year, and then turn around and give more money to Imai, who I don't know. I don't know what he is. I have no idea because, like you said, we're not experts on Japanese baseball. So it just seems like a very interesting sort of nebulous thing. And also, I don't know, and then I'll throw it back to you. I don't know if this is the move that gets Mets fans excited either because, again, just taking the temperature of the people who watch our show and listen to our show, I don't think anybody here is an expert on New Japan Pro Baseball. So I don't know if anybody really knows what this guy is going to be. I think it would be exciting because Mets fans are desperate for something big, but I don't know if this is the bankable thing that we could all look here and go, that's it. That's the guy. That's the move. That's the ace. He's not Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He's not. And he doesn't even necessarily come with the incredible, crazy high upside that Sasaki had either. So I don't know. Have I said anything that sounds crazy?
No, and I think the only thing that could potentially make sense here with moving off of Senga and bringing in Imai is if they're just trying to almost reset the clock and try to get a younger version of what Senga was and try to, do
Very
better.
Fair. Good idea.
To do better than what they did the first go around and try to just maximize that in that way. But I think that the lack of noise on a lot of these players, whether it was Murakami, whether it's Imai, whether it's Okamoto, it's like maybe it's because they're not as good or as well thought of as the media pushes out that they are. And maybe that's why it's becoming so slow. Or maybe this is baseball using a deadline to their advantage to really squeeze out someone like Scott Boras, who is representing both Okamoto and Imai, where it's like he can't really use the timing aspect to really push that much because people can just wait him out, especially if there's not much of a market. But no, it's an interesting one. I know that someone put out there that I think the report said that they were saying how there was a way that the Mets might even just release Senga. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to try to get something for him. It wouldn't be something just outright of going of that nature. Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's no shot.
No.
I would be flabbergasted if the Mets released Senga. Again, we've seen the best of what this guy is, and I find it very hard to believe that even if you just ate down a little bit of that money, that a team who is desperate for pitching that doesn't want to spend a lot of money wouldn't take a flyer on Kodai Senga being healthy and being at the top of their rotation if it's not the Mets, right? Like he makes $14 million a year, basically. So, if he's even not 1.92 ERA, if he's, I don't know, a 3 ERA pitcher, he's worth the money in spades. So I think releasing him is insane. I don't see that happening at all.
No, I don't see that happening either. And it's just, it's, would I welcome Imai coming onto this team? Sure, I would. I think that the numbers show that he can be something. Is the lack of interest in other teams interesting? It is. Is it telling? I think it kind of is as well. Because maybe they don't see be it him or Okamoto, or maybe they're just very questioning of Murakami as well, as difference makers. Whereas I think where a lot of the latest Japanese talent that has taken their talents to Los Angeles, they're not of that ilk. And I think people just assume that the Japanese talent coming over is all going to be superstars, and that's not nearly the case. And I know Armand can get me on this one, but off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. But when it comes to, I don't know if it's all position and pitcher, but I feel at least pitcher. Have any Japanese talent that have come over gotten more than 5 years in any deal outside of Yamamoto? In terms of, like, once they come over, have they gotten more than 5 years outside of Yamamoto, who is like, a unicorn in the sense, like the shirt that I'm wearing? Like, that's a little bit different, but I can't think off the top of my head, but I think that that's also telling about how baseball is a little bit careful when it comes to pitchers that come over from Japan.
Yeah, I can't think of somebody off the top of my head. I mean, we know even Shohei Ohtani's deal with the Angels, right, was shorter than that. So was his 5 years when he first came over? So again, somebody can fact check.
I wanted to say that. Yeah, I mean, obviously Senga got 5 years, but I couldn't think of more than that.
Yeah, it's a good point, because it's so difficult. We always talk on this show about how it's in the offseason, it's fun to speculate on free agents, and a little less fun in a way to speculate on trades, because trades are so difficult to read. Well, even though these players are free agents, again, unless you're a person who follows Japanese baseball or Korean baseball, as it were, or whatever the case may be, it's so difficult to forecast it, because you truly don't know. And I think, Ibby, again, the people who do this for a living, the David Stearns, all the Andrew Friedmans, their front offices, they don't even really know. They're taking the best educated guesses they could possibly take. So when you trickle down to, two guys doing a podcast, it's very hard to forecast what some of these players are going to get, what some of these players are worth, and certainly what some of these players are ultimately going to be when they get here to the major leagues. I do want to jump into the comments, because there's a lot of really good ones. Some we can react to, some I just want to kind of highlight. This first one, I believe it's a new commenter, or a new-ish commenter, saying, not sure we can trust anything the media says, given how close to the vest this org plays it in terms of free agents trades. We just have to wait and see. We as a fan base are incapable of waiting. And it's, I think it's just a really, really, really great point overall. I do understand some of the impatience, but I don't understand how the impatience immediately turns into anger and frustration and vitriol for David Stearns, when it's like, all right, let's just wait it out. Let's just see where this goes. Russell saying trade Senga for international money. There is definitely something there. Maybe it's not Senga, but the Mets are going to have to trade for some kind of international money to sign I believe it's Wandy Asigan,
yes,
if I'm saying that right, who is the
Stole
prospect
from the Yanks
that was going to sign with the Yankees, had a verbal agreement to sign with the Yankees, and now seems is going to sign with the Mets. The Mets will have to free up some money as far as international money is concerned to make that deal. Maybe that's a Senga trade, maybe not, but it is worth just bringing up whether Senga is involved in that deal or not. NJ Tank, this talk of Senga and Imai reminds me of the Spider-Man meme with them pointing at each other. Rosie saying, don't see the Mets spending money there, talking about Imai, when they don't have a lot of space left and the outfield and have outfield needs. We could dive more into this in a couple minutes, Ibby, in terms of where the Mets are, financially. You probably have about $35 million to spend to get their payroll to where they have been the last several years, not at the end of the year, but at the beginning of the year, still giving themselves some runway to either add a player that falls into their lap, or certainly to add at the trade deadline. NJ Tank saying, I agree. I think the Mets fans are starving for a transaction that doesn't involve players in the minor leagues. I do want to,
that's across baseball though, too. Like I'm sorry to cut you off. I just think that, I was listening to some spaces before on X too, and it just feels like people are hungry for something, but the thing that bothers me is, especially Mets fans, because that's who I'm listening to the most, it's like they don't care that others aren't doing things. They want to do things, but it's across the game. Like everyone is slow with this. The CBA's coming up. Everyone's kind of just either waiting players out or trying to like, do we like that? No, because we're always player first. Or we want guys to get paid and get their money or whatever. But I just think that people need to understand that this isn't just a David Stearns thing. This is not a Mets thing. This is across baseball. Yes, some things popped. Yes, we lost some of our players, but it's not like the free agency in baseball is booming. It's very, very cold. And I think that, when the holidays roll around, like we said last week, if something was going to happen, it was going to happen the day before Christmas at the latest. And if it wasn't, then you're going to go through until the new year because everything slows down. And then once the new year pops, you might get an opportunity for things to start rolling in. But, it's not just the Mets. It's a lot of teams across the game.
I do agree with that sentiment overall. A couple more I just wanted to get to here. This one from Carson. Imai is not better than Yamamoto, Senga, Sasaki, or Ohtani. He's been scouted as a Aaron Nola, Zach Gallen ceiling with reliever concern with his erratic fastball. This isn't a slam dunk to push the house on. I look, that's what I've seen. It's the same reporting that you've seen. Thank you to Carson for kind of putting it into one blurb that we could put out there for our viewers. But yeah, I mean, this seems to be the thing. This is not, again, the guy could come here and he could be an ace because that is the spectrum. We have no idea. But when we look at this, just good to caution folks that the Mets tried to go crazy on Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They didn't get him. And he seems to be the guy who's the outlier. Roki Sasaki was a little different because he was basically coming over here as a super young, little bit more of a project. They were never really in on him because the Dodgers were the team. But it's just good to temper expectations because, again, you don't know what you're going to get coming out the other side. Couple more here. Tony HVAC saying, if Shane Baz gets you 3 prospects, I'm sure Senga could get you something good. Odd Villain, shout out Odd Villain. If McNeil got us something, Senga better be worth a damn, basically. And I think that's true too, Ibby. Look, if players like Shane Baz and McNeil are fetching returns, there's no shot the Mets are releasing Senga. I just wanted to say that.
No, yeah, I don't think they're going to release him, but, conversations that were had with people in the know on my end at the QBC when it came to Senga, I was told that, teams like the Angels and the Giants were interested, but they weren't offering anything anything more than things near the bottom of their top prospect list. So we're talking, 25, 30 range on 2 very poor systems. So that kind of tells you where the game's looking at him. And, obviously what gets out and about when it comes to his preparation and his inability to, I don't want to say, play hurt, but his need for perfection in that sense, because we saw a lot of that this past year where it's like he could throw, but he was like, yeah, I'm still not right. Yeah, I still don't want to do it. Yeah, so things like that, it's going to lessen your return. So while I think you can get something for him, I'm not thinking I'm going to get the world, especially if at the time, at least, things change over time. Markets change too. But when you look at teams like the Angels and Giants and you look at their overall systems and that's what they're offering, like, ooh, that's not good. Like, I think you can get something, but I would temper my expectations on what you could get.
Yeah, and also just worth pointing out, Armand, Shane Baz got the return because he has 3 years of control. That's also important.
Very important.
Obviously, somebody like Senga comes with control, but it comes with control at a much higher dollar value just because the situation played out so differently. Speaking of Armand, thank you for this. Wanted to pull it up. Per Google, December 2017, Ohtani signed with the Angels on a minor league deal using the international signing bonus pool, receiving the maximum $2.315 million plus a bonus of $20 million. So that's, I did forget that Ohtani technically was in the minor leagues for a very brief portion of his major league career. So thank you for pulling that up. Ibby, this is a good counterpoint from Joe Prano, friend of the show, very funny comic. Am I crazy that $15 million in a prayer that Senga returns to form isn't the move. When we talk about teams desperate for pitching, the Mets are pretty close to the top. I mean, that is the counter argument, which is if you have a guy who is getting paid below market value that has, we'll use the word ace, but again, you and I are very careful on what you really call a true ace in Major League Baseball. There's probably only 10 of them, maybe 15 on the high end, whatever. But number one pitcher in your rotation potential, you don't want to give him away. And I think that's the most important thing here. You just mentioned it where Kodai Senga is he's fickle. He's interesting because you don't want a guy to pitch hurt, but you'd like a guy to be able to give you something when he's not fully maximized in his comfort level physically and in his mechanics. And Kodai Senga just isn't going to be that guy. So the argument for moving on from Kodai Senga is raising the floor of your rotation. But the argument for keeping Kodai Senga, or certainly not giving Kodai Senga away, which is why they never release him, and I don't think it's realistic to trade him for international bonus pool money, is what Joe Prano is pointing out here, which is the Mets keep talking about needing a number one. We have seen it. Kodai Senga has the ability to be a number one in New York. He's done it here. So you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I do understand trying to move on from him, but you're never going to do it for nothing, quote unquote, for nothing.
No, and I'm just in the midst of bringing up some stats that I saw earlier today that I was interested in. There it is. So found us on Twitter. Shout out to Sleeper Mets, who I know people have their thoughts on Sleeper Mets, and he might be on the list for Mary. But when it comes to Senga, before his injury in 25, 7-3, 147 ERA, which was the lowest in Major League Baseball at the time, 13 starts, 73 innings, which was 6 innings per start, a 196 OBA, 70 strikeouts, and only gave up 4 home runs. And then, of course, one ill-fated toss from Pete Alonso, and then everything went downhill. So, again, I'm not trying to, I'm not one that's saying you have to get rid of Kodai Senga. I think you need to better the front end to allow him to just be what he's supposed to be. And I think that maximizes the rotation that much more. Is it a pain when you have situations like we had last year where it's, not, this unwillingness to be out there, even if you're, 98%, like it's a little bit of a pain. The idea of a 6-man rotation, even though that's more so across baseball in general to keep guys fresh, but really something that has to happen, if not more, when it comes to Kodai Senga. Like, I know the talent's there, and this rotation, we always talk about it, whether it's in the bullpen or the starters. Like, we want arm talent. You want guys that have stuff. There's stuff here. The Ghost Fork's one of the best pitchers in baseball. So it's not as if he is an absolute bum. I know that there's been ups and downs his tenure so far, but am I against it if he is in the starting rotation, be it a 5-man or 6-man at the start of the season? I'm not, but I also understand if they want to move off it, like I said weeks ago, where I thought that David Stearns is going to try to move him because I just think he's tired of the what's the word I'm looking for? The hassle of having him.
Yeah, a couple things from Armand. Really good stuff. Thank you. The Ohtani Angels deal, the $20 million was the posting fee, but then also letting us know Yu Darvish signed a 6-year, $60 million contract with the Rangers, who made a record $51.7 million posting bid at the time. I think they've since changed the way the posting fee works.
Yes,
where you can't just do it's sort of like the like the draft pick compensation in the NFL, right? Like number 1 overall picks used to be able to get like an unlimited amount of money. And now there's like it's capped. I think the posting fee is directly related to some kind of percentage of what the contract is. If I'm not mistaken, again, it's not Armand's job, but he's really good at fact checking us as far as this is concerned. Also says Tanaka signed a 7-year, $155 million deal with the Yankees, which also had a $20 million posting fee. So there have been a couple, Ibby, that have signed for a longer term historically. But you're right in that over the last little bit, it has seemed like teams are a little more reluctant to go over 5 years with some of these players coming over from Japan. Again, unless you're talking Yamamoto, who was 25, and it seems like every team that was scouting him that really wanted him like crazy, whether that was the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, or whomever else, they were all probably right, because this guy's stuff is electric. And, after a little bit of, ups and downs and feeling it out in year one, I mean, the guy is as good as advertised. From David Stern's burner, trading Senga at the bottom of his value is poor asset management. Keep him healthy and let him pitch in New York. A very succinct way of really presenting the counterpoint. And again, I'm not going to argue with this. I think everybody who is a Mets fan likes Kodai Senga. I think he's an affable guy. I think he really fits the mold of like players. We talk about the exodus of players that people really love to root for. I think a lot of people like rooting for Kodai Senga, and I understand why. But I do also understand the frustration of you can only roster so many people like Manaya and Senga, or, duplicate kind of roster spots, right? Ibby, where it's like you're hoping that Sean Manaea is healthy and pitches like a top end of the rotation starter that he's being paid to be. Well, you're also hoping that of Senga. You can't always have these duplicate players on your roster. It's part of the reason why everybody's talking about this stuff with Vientos, right? Like if you keep, and we'll talk about Vientos in a minute, but you can't go out and get Gino Suarez and roster Vientos. They're duplicate players. It doesn't make sense. Why would you pay $20 million for Suarez if you could pay $750,000 for Vientos? So I think it's sort of the same argument here, where it's not an anti-Kodai Senga sentiment as much as it's Senga is making way less money than Manaea. And if you could only trade one of them, Senga becomes the candidate, and you don't really want to roll the dice on too many players in your starting rotation. I do want to bring this up as we sort of transition the conversation away from Senga specifically and just an overarching view for the rotation, which is Rosie saying, given the holes and the moves thus far, I don't see them at spending on pitching. I don't even think they'll sign Framber. I'll add the other holes, the outfield, things like that, some of the stuff in the lineup are more pressing. Ibby, I tweeted out yesterday or the day before, I think the Mets will add 2 bats, 1 arm in the rotation, and 1 arm in the bullpen to close out the offseason. I think one of those bats likely comes from a free agent place, and one of them comes from a trade place. That's just what I feel. I could be wrong, but I also think the Mets will add a starter. I don't know where that starter is going to come from, and I think the Mets will add another relief pitcher arm. And I think it's going to be like under $10 million on a 1-year deal. So if the market bottoms out for a guy like Sir Anthony Dominguez, sort of like the Ryan Stanek deal of last year, where you're going to get a player for a 1-year deal, 1 year, $7 million, 1 year, $10 million, 1 year, $9 million, something like that. So I disagree with Rosie. I think the Mets have a lot of holes, but I think the Mets are going to fill them. I don't know if we're going to be super stoked on every player that they fill them with, but I just think the Mets have too many holes to not add 2 bats, 1 starter, 1 reliever. I don't know. You could disagree, but I think they need to do that to field the team in 2026.
You have to add bats. There's not enough right now. And we said like in the outfield alone, you got to add at least 2 outfielders to this point. Because I'm assuming that, as much as I want to push Carson Benj and have him be a part of this team from the jump, because I think he can do it, I know that they're going to start him in AAA and they're going to give him his at-bats and give him time to grow and get comfortable. So you're going to need something up top, at least as a placeholder. But yeah, there has to be more offense. And, to this comment here by Rosie, I've been a Framber guy because I do believe that he can act as a bridge. That's the way I've been describing him for, a bridge and a stabilizer, if you will, for the front end, or what they hope can be the front end of this rotation moving forward, that being McLean, Tong, and Sproat. And then once he's done, those guys are prepared and ready to support the next batch of arms that could come up if they're still here, of course, that being the Watsons and the Wenigers and players of that ilk. But I also understand the standpoint, and I know David Stern's burner brought this up. We've been talking a lot lately, and I appreciate the stuff he puts out on X. I'm with him too when he says, if I have a 32-year-old that has a qualifying offer attached to him? Is that going to be the one that I'm going to give, even if it's only 3 or 4 years? Is that what the move is going to be? And I get that stance too. It's questionable. It's been creeping into the back of my mind even more and more, to where it's forcing me to say that maybe they don't attack anything when it comes to the free agent market, and they're going to figure this out via trade, which is what we've always felt was the 1A. If they were going to get what they're truly searching for, it wasn't going to be in free agency. It was always going to be via trade. But I came to liking the idea of Framber, but the more and more I'm thinking, maybe I'm wrong on that. And I have no problem admitting that, even though I was thinking one way and I'm kind of changing. But you learn things over time, and you look at things a little bit more, with a closer lens. So maybe it doesn't make sense to go after Framber. And of course, the years are always going to matter, and the deal would have you. But what do you give up the qualifying? Is this going to be the guy he does it for? Like, I don't know if it is. So I really think that the interesting thing about this free agency is going to be what player he opts to go for. Because like I said before, I don't think that there's much out there that he likes. I'm staying with that idea because I don't think he likes much. And I know people hate it where they're pigeonholing him and saying, oh, he's only going to give 3-year deals. That's all he ever gives, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it's always player dependent. The players right now, that's all that they are worth in the eyes of the Mets. If there's someone that's worth going long on, they will do it, but it has to make sense. And I don't think he thinks that any of these players make sense, hence said offers. So I know Mets fans just want to spend and just bring something, and if it flops, like whatever. But again, this is also the same fan base that is harping on a 2-year deal of Frankie Montas that failed, and they use that as an excuse of calling Stearns an absolute bum. So when he exercises caution elsewhere now, we don't like that either. So that's kind of where it bothers me, where people complain so much about one thing. You learn from something, you're more cautious in another area, but you still don't like it. Like, that doesn't work for me.
Very fair. This 2-part tweet comment is a little heady, but I want to bring it up because we touched on it and Armand did the work to pull it up. MLB posting fee info for major league contracts with a total guaranteed value of $25 million or less. The posting fee, the release fee, will be 20% of the total guaranteed value of the contract. So if a player signs for $25 million or less of total guaranteed money, the fee, the posting fee that goes to the team in Japan, will be 20% of the total guaranteed value. However, if there is an MLB contract that is between $25 million and $1 and $50 million, the posting fee given to the Japanese team will be 20% of the first $25 million plus 17.5% of the total guaranteed value exceeding $25 million. That's a lot. We don't have to get into it further than that, but I did want to give Armand his credit for pulling that up because, again, we talked about where the limitations are in terms of the posting fee, whereas Ibby before, in the 90s and early 2000s, the posting fee was the Wild Wild West, which is also that's why the Yankees got a lot of those players too, because
Red
they
Sox
were like,
too, yeah.
Yeah, like, dude, George Steinbrenner didn't care. He's like, if I want this guy and all I have to do is give, the Yomiuri Giants $25 million, $50 million, sure, take it. I don't care. So, it's just part.
Well, that's also why you end up with a Keigawa and eating that money because he was terrible.
Right. I forgot about Keigawa. Jesus Christ. Ibby, I want to, well, first of all, I just want to address this from Paul Revere saying, read before that the Cubs are offering Framber Valdez 6 for $200, but I doubt
I don't
it's
think
legit.
That exists.
Ibby, I just think if Framber Valdez has 6 for $200 on the table and he hasn't taken it, insane, man.
Yeah, he's taking that already. I think a lot of these guys are just not getting years right now. And that's why everything is so slow, because guys that are asking for 6, 7, 8 years, I think that they're being offered 3, 4, and an outside shot. Some are getting 5, but those 5 probably have an opt-out after 2. So it's like, and which then they're trying to hit the market again. Kyle Tucker as an example, as someone who would hit the market again at 30 or 31. Bellinger, on the other hand, is probably looking to lock in and not have to get opt-outs, which has been a thing for Scott Boras when it comes to a little bit older of a client, 31 being old old in this sense, but trying to lock in their guys so they don't have to worry about those things moving forward, so they get all their money. So yeah, it's just if that offer was there, I think he signed already. I just don't think that these guys are getting any years at the moment.
I think Joe DeMaio makes a really good point here in about as few words as you could possibly do it. Players want term.
Yeah.
Teams don't.
It's true. It's 1,000% true.
It's what it is.
That's all
Across
it
baseball
is.
right now.
Yeah.
And that's also, and shout out Joe, because I mentioned this on Walk Up Whiskey on Friday. I had listened to the most recent episode of the Mets pod with Joe and Connor, or at this point, actually, it might have been 2 episodes ago that they put out. But the point is, he said, what I like to see some kind of deadline for free agency to make this more exciting, I would, but it's just going to be a thing that the owners use against the players.
Exactly.
And that's why it's not that simple, because we're seeing that these owners are already using every trick they possibly can against the players to avoid paying players. It's very clear. Now, some of it you can excuse away as good baseball. And I think if you're an organization that has a top flight payroll, whether that's the Mets, the Dodgers, the Yankees, whomever else, I think you could sit there and you could say, you know what, that's pretty fair. The Yankees have a lot of big money deals on their books. They're being really cautious about who else they add to these long-term big money deals. Same with the Mets. People don't want to hear this, but same with the Dodgers. Also, the Dodgers are in a different ballpark because they have an unlimited fund of money coming from Japan because Shohei Ohtani is the most popular athlete in the world. But other teams are using this excuse to already not pay players, and they already weren't paying players anyway. So if you give them a deadline, they're just going to strong arm players into taking less money. Hey, this is our deal. Take it or leave it. Free agent signing period ends tomorrow at noon. And if you don't sign, guess what? You can't sign until whatever date. That means you miss spring training, or that means you miss this, or that means you could see it from a mile away.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not excusing any team of doing it, but I think if you have a top flight payroll, let's just say top 5, top 10, at least you could say, well, my team is trying and my team is not balking at signing every person under the sun. But you know they're going to use it as an excuse. You know it. It's, again, you could see it from forever. I do want to pull this up from Carson. It's a good 2-parter. The Mets are going to make the rotation a job for the kids to lose. McClain, Tong, Sproat, Scott. With the free agent class next year and the contracts you have, it's not shocking that they would pull back. Following it up by saying, I would also trust Justin Willard to do his job and elevate this pitching staff over the new Chop House Teflon in Atlanta. Again,
Boston took steps last year. They took steps last year. They did.
Yeah.
And he was a part of that. Someone like a Lucas Giolito. I'm not saying that it was all Willard, but I'm just saying that system itself, which he was a part of. Lucas Giolito took giant steps to reclaiming what he was. Now, he got a little banged up at the end of the year, but you saw guys for them come up and pitch well. Granted, they're still trying to get better, but they maximized what they had. I think the same thing could happen here. A new voice can maximize and unlock some of the things that these kids have. And I agree with what Carson's saying. I still think that someone on the front end can help. And makes a lot of sense. Probably don't want to tie themselves down to something like we were just saying, like Framber at that term number, because they probably would much rather do that for someone like a Peralta or a Skubal or a player of that nature. But yeah, I'm with that 100%. And I could see it because, again, I question if he likes anything available. And if the trade market doesn't materialize, like if guys are truly not out there, if Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez are not really out there, and if Sandy and Edward Cabrera are being held, or like whatever it may be, like if that's the case, like what do you, like fans are screaming for things, but remember, it takes 2 to tango.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let me bring this up because a couple of people have well, actually, really quickly. Joe DeMaio says, this is why you saw guys like Cease, Schwarber, and Alonso sign quickly. Yeah. And it's my major rebuttal to what Paul Revere brought up about Framber having 6 years on the table. Schwarber, Cease, Alonso, they took the deals when teams came anywhere close to meeting their years. That's what they did. That's what they did. The Mets offer in some ways to Schwarber was better than Philly's offer. Now you could say that there's some loyalty to Philly or whatever. Not really. He wanted more years. Kyle Schwarber's 34 years old?
Yep.
He wanted 5 years. He wouldn't
He
take
wants
3 if
500
you're gonna
homers. That's what he wants.
Yeah, of course. He's not going to take 3 if you could get 5.
Right.
So, the Mets tried to entice him by quote unquote overpaying him, but that's what it comes down to. Matt Talks Rangers says, I still feel the most likely big-time free agent pitcher acquisition the Mets make is Framber. If his market gets so low, he takes a 3-year deal with an opt-out after 2. I would do that. I think the Mets would do that. I think that's what the Mets are waiting for. I know that Matt is saying free agent pitcher acquisition, Ibby, but I want to change this and just say that the longer this plays out, I think, for what you pointed out before, the most likely free agent acquisition may start to become Kyle Tucker, because Kyle Tucker is younger than Framber. He's younger than Cody Bellinger. He's the kind of guy you might be able to entice on a high AAV deal that makes him a free agent in a year or 2. Because he would hit free agency again with the opportunity to get a 5 or a 6-year deal or a 7-year deal.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this weeks ago where I said, it seemed like the Mets were like a very, very long shot of even being involved in any type of talks with Kyle Tucker. The one caveat I threw at the end was, the Mets are in this if this market crashes. If no one is giving him $400 million, which at this point doesn't seem like that's happening. If this market comes down to where the Mets are more willing to play ball at a high AAV, like John just said, with opt-outs, like, this could start to make sense. Now, is it going to happen? I don't know, because there's a lot of things that come into play here, especially when you're talking about Bellinger too, and the handedness of this outfield and this offense. Like, you're trying to get right-handed batters, and this is going to lead into the Vientos talk, but like, where is the right-handedness coming from? So if you're signing a Tucker or a Bellinger, look, I'm all about talent. I don't care what you hit. I don't care what you bat. If you're a good hitter, you can hit anybody. So if you're telling me the whole outfield's going to be left, or if you're trading for Jarren Duran, your whole outfield's still left, like, I'm not sure exactly, where the right-handedness is going to come from, and if it's going to affect things, elsewhere. So it's like, if I'm saying, we're bringing up Vientos now too, it's like, if I sign a Tucker or Bellinger, now, am I happy with Mark Vientos? Because that, to John's point, even earlier in the show, a Mark Vientos at the money he's making, at the potential clip of production that he could provide, is that of a Eugenio Suarez, who's 34. Well, how would the Mets waste $20 million a year on Suarez? It doesn't make any sense. It really does. But like, the question that I posed to the chat also, which is at 51 votes. If you haven't voted yet, make sure that you do. It's opening day, and Mark Vientos is your DH. Are you happy? 61% right now say no. 39% say yes. So again, it's interesting, and I think Tucker is in play if that market truly has crashed, where the Mets could offer, let's say, $40-something million a year with early opt-outs, where you can test it again and reestablish. But the one thing when it comes to that is, would a Kyle Tucker be willing to do that in New York? That's not, no, and I'm a Kyle Tucker fan. Would he bet on himself to make a name for himself here in a Mets jersey, New York, where people have struggled those first years outside of a Juan Soto because he's Juan Soto? Like, would he be willing to take that risk here, or would he take that risk elsewhere, where he can put up numbers, whether it's park dependent, whether it's media dependent? Like, I don't know. Again, it comes down to money. What Joe said, it comes down to term. Like, things like that do matter, and guys will just take the money because they're just going to make it. But like, that's the interesting thing too. But yeah, I do think that this market has come down, and the Mets are definite players here. But the handedness and how it relates to Mark Vientos, and how it relates to what we're talking about when it comes to Luis Robert, who's righty, Austin Hayes, yuck, righty. But still, players like that, you're starting to see why they're being talked about so much, because we're trying to play this game of right versus left, and what makes sense for a more balanced lineup, which we have been saying since the deadline last year. The roster itself too many of the same things, not much, flexibility and balance that we want. And that's what they're clearly trying to get to.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with any of that. I will say this. Not a shot at Rosie here, but Mets aren't in the market for Tucker. We just don't know. We don't know. They might be. And I think the longer it drags on with anybody who's a free agent, even to your point before, Rosie, about the Mets having this threshold of money, this budget that they want to stick to. I think that's true. Every team does. But Ibby, we saw it before with Steve Cohen, where, if somebody's out there and somebody's lingering and there's an opportunity, I know it didn't come to fruition with Carlos Correa, but the Mets were done. And then they decided to give it a go because it was there. Now, I know it's a different GM with a different thought process, but my point is, if we get to, February 10th and Kyle Tucker is still a free agent and David Stern says, look, I think if we give this guy $45 million for 1 year, he'll come to us. He'll make us I don't think that Steve Cohen is no, I don't see that happening.
It's also tough with Tucker and assuming here, Rosie, mainly because do we even know what the Kyle Tucker market is? What have you heard? What has anybody heard?
Right.
If we're being honest, you haven't heard anybody. There's been nothing. You've heard an early rumor when it comes to Toronto, and that's been it. You haven't heard a peep on anything else, unless I'm missing something. And please correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. But I haven't heard anything outside of the Kyle Tucker, outside of the Blue Jays with Kyle Tucker. I've heard anything else.
Well, and to your point, Ibby, if the Blue Jays, the rumor that kept swirling is the Blue Jays like Kyle Tucker, the Blue Jays are the most likely to offer him $400 million. The Blue Jays are the most likely to offer him 10 years. The Blue Jays are the most well, if they did any of that, he'd be a Blue Jay right now.
Done. He'd be locked in.
If there was $400 million on the table, or even 350, or it'd be even 300, because that means it's probably somewhere around a 10-year deal. He would have taken it because no one else is offering it. Sal with a good one. Did Morosi say that Tucker is on a plane yet? He hasn't. So that changes, that does change the math a bit. Ibby, I think this is a good one from Joe. It's a two-parter. Joe DeMeo saying the Vientos debate is tough because it's not like you can realistically get a different DH and put Vientos on the bench. He then has to go. They need to get unequivocally better to dump him. Follows it up by saying, if there was a big market for Vientos, you think he would have been moved already, but what do I know? And I think that's the tricky part. You have to remember a couple things when we talk about Vientos right now. Ibby, I'm a believer in Vientos' ability. I always have been. I, though, like Keefe, I like Ryan Finkelstein. There was this back and forth on Twitter yesterday between the two of them. I chimed in. I agree. I think most people in the chat would agree. I think Joe DeMeo basically just said in a not so exact way that he agrees. The Mets need to do something exciting and big along the lines of Bellinger or Duran or Tucker, etc., for me to accept Vientos as the DH, because to Rosie's comment from a couple minutes ago, he's been uneven in his major league career. So I don't think Vientos is a bankable thing that you could just say, he's our DH, boom, we're done, we're good. But I do think that if Vientos is given 500 to 600 at-bats, being mostly a DH, maybe every once in a while playing first base here and there, I think he's going to hit 30 home runs because he has a consistent hard hit rate that was among the best on the Mets. He was right there. It was Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, and Mark Vientos in terms of hard hit rate, barrel rate, all this stuff. He was right there. Now, the results, the numbers, they were not pretty. He did not look good. It was a bad year. I get all of that. But even, I think it's Zips, Ibby. They have Mark Vientos at playing in 125 games, hitting 25 home runs. So if you give him 150 games, he's probably going to hit 30 or 35 home runs by that same measure. So I guess what I'm saying here about Vientos is no one should be giddy and excited because his major league career has been kind of all over the map, and I get that. And if the Mets don't make another move, no, Vientos is not going to make any of us happy, and he shouldn't. But to Joe's point, he seems untradeable because he's out of options, although he is cost controlled. Because if the Mets could have traded Vientos straight up for Luis Robert or something where they get better value elsewhere, they probably would have made that move already. So I don't know what his value is to other teams. I know what his value to the Mets is. Give him 500 at bats and see if he hits 30 home runs. And to me, that value at $750,000 is better than paying Gino Suarez $20 million, $30 million. What is he going to get? Even if it's a 1-year deal, let's just say it's $23 million. He's going to strike out 200 and something times, and maybe he'll hit 40 home runs, and that would be wonderful. But his on-base percentage is going to be like 280. His batting average is going to be like 210. He can't play defense. Wouldn't you rather just see if Mark Vientos could hit 30 bombs?
Again, like when it came to Vientos, for me, it was always, if he's my opening day first baseman, I have a problem because of the whole, defense and run prevention and things of that nature. If he's my DH, again, why my question is a little bit, incomplete is because other things need to happen, in my opinion, at least, when it comes to the overall offense, for me to allow that to be what it is. Now, is the talent there? Sure. We saw it in 24. Was it ugly in 25? Yes. Outside of I think he had a hot August, like a red hot August.
I think he hit half his home runs in August too.
Yeah. I think he was red hot.
Yeah.
I think he had like a 162 weighted runs created plus something along those lines. Like he was on fire. Look, it's there, but it was in spurts. It wasn't pretty. It made you question if the league caught up to him and he wasn't adjusting like we thought he was adjusting in 24. Maybe things change. Maybe this front office thinks that was, an outlier and it's going to get better moving forward. But from the standpoint of like Vientos versus Suarez, like if you told me Suarez at the deadline, I was on this show saying I wanted Suarez and I thought it made sense. I wanted Suarez and I wanted Merrill Kelly. I wanted to deal with the Diamondbacks. I thought that made most sense for this team, but it didn't happen. And I get it, whatever. But when it comes to now and 3 years of Suarez, like I don't like it because I question it. I know that this fan base is not going to be able to handle it. Just like I said, this fan base wasn't going to be able to handle Javi Baez. It's like you get things in spurts, and when it's ugly, it's ugly. And he went to Seattle, and it was ugly, man. It wasn't pretty at all.
He did hit like 20 home runs, which was insane. But I think he hit like 180. And he struck out a ton, and he had one big grand slam in the playoffs, but he was invisible outside of that. So,
I don't think a player like that survives here. And I think from the standpoint of, like, I'm not trying to like backtrack my thoughts on Vientos because I still have my feelings. And if he was dealt, it wouldn't shock me at all in a deal if it makes sense, from the front office perspective. But I've seen him do it here at least. Versus Suarez, I've never seen him do it here, and I question if he'd be able to handle it because once he's down, I wonder if he would be able to get up here. I really do.
It's very fair. Carson saying, I think they already have a better DH than Vientos in Polanco, and I think that's why they trade for a right-handed hitter, whether it's first base or in the outfield. Carson is still sticking to them swinging a trade for Spencer Torkelson or Luis Robert Jr. I'll add a couple names in here that people are going to get. They're going to roll their eyes and they're going to get mad and blah, 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 blah. But, now that the Orioles have signed Pete Alonso, Ryan Mountcastle, take a big swing on Mayo. Guys that are blocked.
There is a video that I posted last year about why I thought David Stearns would go after Ryan Mountcastle. Didn't happen then. Could still happen now, I guess. I would love a huge swing for Kobe Mayo. Like, that'd be great. Since Baltimore just chooses not to give that guy at bats, I think I'd be all about it. But Yeah, I think there are
I think,
avenues here.
sorry to interrupt. I think
Yeah, sure.
just mentioning those two players from Baltimore, one is the you're swinging for the stars, right? You're going all out. If you get Mayo, there's a chance Mayo's a stud, right? I limited there was a time when Mayo was like one of
Powers
the top
there, man.
prospects
Yeah.
in baseball, and I know he's only had a cup of coffee and it's not necessarily been great, but you're swinging for the fences with him. With Ryan Mountcastle, I think you're going a little bit more for floor. Joe DeMayo, as a DeMayo, would co-sign bringing on Mayo. No, but I mean, I think both of those guys make sense. I don't know if Torkelson's really available, but I think that would make sense. I think that is where the infatuation with a guy like Robert again starts to make sense. You're talking about the value being offered. Like, he does not, this is Luis Robert, does not have to be the MVP candidate that he was from a couple years ago to bring you the value that you need. He only needs to, if he got back to 50% of that playing the center field that he plays, you would be dancing in the streets for $20 million. You would. Now, the bad part is what you have to give up to get him. Correct.
Right. And I think that's where I think that's where a lot of teams are bowing out. And when I see Cincinnati as the team that was with us going back and forth for Robert, and then they opt for two outfielders instead, it kind of takes them out of that, one would think, tells me that maybe their price tag on Robert isn't, what they wanted to deal with. And there was a rumor out there of what was asked for. I don't know if I believe that, asking for Chase Petty plus more. Like, I don't know if I believe it. And if that's the truth, then I can understand why teams are walking away, because they're still valuing this guy at such a high rate. Whereas, like, my guess is, if you gave us Robert and kicked in $7 million, and then we gave you Acuna and a lower end arm, like I think I said Pintaro. Like, if you did that, like, okay, like, I can see that, but I think they're asking for a lot more, and I think that's why you're getting a lot of pushback from other teams saying you're valuing this guy but we're not going to give you that. So I think that's why he's still in Chicago and might end up remaining in Chicago.
Sal saying Paul Goldschmidt on a spring training invitee deal. Ibby, I'll just say this. There is a world where this makes baseball sense, and I do not have a baseball rebuttal for this, but I am just going to say no. I don't have a baseball reason. There's a roundabout, not as the
it would
deal.
just add way too much. Like, there's a malaise over everything so far. This would just make it worse. Like, this would just make it like very like like I can't sit here and defend that one. I really couldn't, let alone from the nonsense that would spring from the more Yankees to Mets BS that would come of that. Like, me, just from a baseball player perspective, I'd be like, ugh, just go back to Arizona, man. That's where you're going to end up. Just go back to Arizona. Makes sense. Like, I don't need that here. I don't.
Jump back into the comments really quick. Lazy Mary had something, said, everything John says is a two-parter, followed it up by saying, you know what else is a two-parter? That Russian tracksuit. Actually not. I'm wearing, it's not matching, but that is a good comment. It's another good one. To which Graphics Joker said, I love Ibby's My Little Pony shirt, but John's behind enemy lines gear is great. Danger Zone did ask right before that. I brought these up in backwards order. Tell me that's a My Little Pony shirt. Ibby, do you want to elaborate on the shirt before we go into the break?
No, it's just a I bought this shirt for my daughter's birthday when she turned 5 over a couple months ago. Mainly because, like, if it was a unicorn themed party, and I bought it because it's a unicorn riding a dinosaur. And if there's anything that describes my daughter, a unicorn riding a dinosaur is very much what she is. So that's all that it is. Just a unicorn wearing glasses with a rainbow riding a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's all.
Really, really great hard-hitting stuff here from Carson, asking Joe DeMayo his thoughts on mayonnaise, though, because Joe DeMayo would be all for Kobe Mayo joining the team, but how does he feel about mayonnaise? It's a real Francesa situation. Hey, Mike, do you think that the New York Giants and the San Francisco Giants get together when they come to town? It's a very WFAN. But you know what? Yeah. Lazy Mary, Joe the mayonnaise. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's a good one.
Joe DeMayo. I think that's gonna be your new nickname. I think you've just earned one. Joe the mayonnaise.
Joe
Okay,
the mayonnaise.
Let's let's head into the break really quickly. If you're watching live and you have never seen this show before, you're like, what is the break? It is just a quick 30-second reset that we need for the show. 550 eyes across all platforms watching us right now. We appreciate all you folks. We've got about an hour or so to play with. So we'll head into the break. We'll come right back. It is John Saponaro. It is Matt Ibanez. It is Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, live on Substack. We will be right back. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back into Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, live on Substack, like we are each and every single week. 30-second break, right back at it. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, like we are here with you doing our final show of 2025 before we turn the calendar to 2026, and hopefully a lot of moves on the horizon for our New York Mets in January and February. Before we get back into the conversation, Ibby, let's hit everybody with a quick word from our friends over at Independent Safes.
Absolutely, John. IndependentSafes.com. Independent Safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes. Fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And now we got our favorite segment of the day, that being throw it away, toss away the key, get rid of everybody. Who am I tossing into the safe? Who is going to be thrown away once and for all into the river? I'm struggling a little bit. There's a lot of, I mean, there are some ways that I could go, ways that I'm going to choose not to go. I'm trying to think about the week that was.
Graphics Joker, Joe with a good one. Throw LA Traffic in the safe.
I mean, that's a good one for John. That's for sure. We could have started a little bit earlier if it wasn't for that damn garbage truck. Yeah, in general, I'm just gonna put. You know what? I'm gonna put in just the general gossip of everything that's gone on, newspapers, what have you, just nonsense. Again, it's clear as day that we are thirsty. Northeast is always thirsty for baseball news. Everyone, it's baseball 24/7 here. So we want nonstop coverage. We want things, but I think it's just been a little bit extra digging, looking for things, making things that aren't really things. A thing. I just think it's been too much. So I'm going to put the regular newspaper gossip around this team that has been going on, especially the last week, into the safe. Granted, there's been a whole entire offseason to this point, but all of that, I'm putting that in the safe. I'm locking it, and I'm completely throwing it into the river and letting it drown, if you will. So that's what I'm putting into the safe this week.
We got a couple good ones. Carson, my appendix goes in the safe. Carson had an appendectomy this week, which I had.
Always fun.
I've had an appendectomy.
Same.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize.
Yes.
When
Mine
did you
was
have
ugly.
your appendix out?
Mine was mine was years ago, but mine was bad because I thought I had a stomach ache, like a bad stomach ache, and nobody knew that my appendix was like slowly tearing. So nobody knew nobody had a clue. Like I was literally like dying on my bed, like not even knowing it, just laying there. And then my stubborn self finally decided I should go to the ER. And then they were like, yeah, your stomach's been filling up with this poison. So we got to get you into surgery. So like a lot of people are like in and out quickly. I was in the hospital for like well over a week with like a thing pumping stuff out of the side of me. So it wasn't pretty, not fun, would not recommend. But yeah, I have been there and it wasn't fun.
I will say this. I had my appendix out when I was like 7 years old. It was on Thanksgiving Day. It was also very similar to yours in the sense that I was just kind of sitting there with like a really bad stomach ache. My family was like prepping for Thanksgiving. They were cooking. It was like, okay, well, like we'll take care of you. Like, like lay down on the couch, relax, ginger ale, all the, things, whatever. Just got a bad stomach ache. I'm a kid. Kids get sick all the time, catch little bugs this time of year, whatever. And, then it finally came down to the point where like after a few hours, I like painfully call my mom from the other room. And I was like, I've got to go to the bathroom. And she's like, all right, go. And I was like, I can't stand up.
Yeah.
She was like, what? And I was like, I was too much pain to stand up. I was like literally keeled over. And the reason why I tell that story is because Ibby, I was 7 years old. I am now a lot older than 7. I'm almost 40. I remember vividly the pain, what it felt like, where it was, how intense it was. I have a pretty high pain threshold, like as an adult. And I have this vivid memory from 30 years ago, over 30 years, of how painful that was. And it is absolutely brutal. So, would not recommend. And I also, like you, I was in the hospital. I think now they do stuff like with appendix, if they don't burst, especially, they're kind of like in and out, like laparoscopically. I was like, cut open. I was cut open and like in the hospital for like 6 days.
It was hysterical when it happened to me, like my situation. And then the kid next to me, his situation, like this was in like the ER before he got sent up, like he was taken care of. And that guy was like skipping out of the hospital, like perfectly fine. I was like dying in my bed after what was going on with me. But yes, it's a lot easier. It's a lot quicker now. And people are usually, fine relatively quickly. But it was funny just seeing how I was like completely out and this kid was, hop skipping down the hallway.
Freaking graphics Joker just saying, I may need a hernia operation. That sounds fucking awful,
That's
be honest.
Terrible.
But yes, Blast Radius saying, and we echo it, get well soon, Carson.
Get well soon, brother.
To which Carson says, I'm about 75% now, but I've also been told to blame David Stearns for it.
Everyone else does.
Be okay.
Why not?
Yeah, you know what? Why not? Just go ahead and blame David Stearns. Couple of other people want to put Blast Radius wants to put the wind in the safe. I guess it's real windy.
Jersey, it was rough last night. Wind was blowing everything down. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about that where I live, but weather's not great here, by the way. It rained for like a week. It's going to rain for like another week. Mets XVX saying, put all of the year 2025 in the safe and yeet that sucker. Which
why not? Get rid of it.
Also fair. You know what? You do that every year. You put the year, just
put it in the safe.
Move on. Danger zone. The Mets and Jets are giving me hemorrhoids.
God bless.
As we talk about more medical ailments. But this is one, maybe before we get back into it. Lazy Mary saying, John, Maker's Mark 101 high proof. That's my recommendation for the week. I have not had that. I've had Maker's Mark, but I have not had
love Maker's Mark. Yeah.
Maybe I will give that a go. And if I can get my hands on it, maybe for this week on Walk Off Whiskey on Friday. We'll see. We shall see. I haven't put anybody in the safe.
You haven't.
We were talking about appendectomies and I totally forgot. I was about to end the segment. Who do I want to put in the safe? I love this. $50 battle, probably 75 in California. Thank you. Who do I want to put in the safe? Ibby, I do want to put, I don't want to bring this up, but I want to just put certain narratives in the safe that just have nothing to do with your baseball team. Like, we all, people who follow me, people who watch this show, I'm outspoken about the Mets. I'm outspoken about politics. I'm outspoken about all of it. I have my allegiances. You could agree, you could disagree. I don't want to have that. I don't want to turn the show into that out of fairness to you as my co-host and out of fairness to what this show is about. I do think some of the reaction that we have seen has just been disgusting. I just think it's too much. It's a bridge too far, no matter what you think, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe. It's just too far. It's just too far. I don't know how else to say it other than that without diving into it deeper and turning the show into something else. I just think it's all too much. It's too far. And you've raised your hand, so I go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, to just echo what you're trying to put across. I wish I can give credit to who said it on X, but they were just like, baseball is your getaway. Baseball is what's supposed to remove you from everything. And mixing things is not something that you should do, because now worlds are colliding and now you're ruining something that's supposed to just be pure. And that's just my stance on everything. Like, I don't focus on that stuff. It's not for me. And I just want to talk about baseball. And that's all that really matters in the end, the baseball players and talking ball. And that's really what it's all about. And that's what everyone should look at. I know that they won't, but that's really what it should be about.
I just look, I understand, like Graphics Joker saying worlds are colliding, and it's becoming increasingly harder to do this, which I think what you're saying, what Joe is saying is good advice ultimately of let's just mind our business and be old school bitching and complaining about our favorite baseball team. Like that's it. That's the goal.
That's more than
right.
Enough.
That's more. But it is hard,
more than
right?
enough.
I just want to, I'm not trying to be a contrarian to this, but like we admit that like it's harder to do that in 2025, almost 2026 than it was in 1975. It's everybody's stuff is all over social media and all of this. I just like, it's this narrative. Let me put it this way. Let me frame it in a baseball context and then we can move on. This is my safe. But this narrative that Francisco Lindor has, because of his wife and his political beliefs, convinced David Stearns and Steve Cohen to jettison players that might make the baseball team better. That's insane. That's what I'll put in the safe. The thought process that one player, however popular, however successful, however well paid, has now convinced his GM, his president of baseball ops, and his owner, where all of their goal is to win. Everybody in that situation, those three people, their goal is to be on a winning baseball team, has said, forget that. I don't like these people, which probably isn't true. And even if it makes our team bad and it jeopardizes not only my legacy, but David Stearns' job and Steve Cohen's legacy, I've now convinced you that we should get rid of good baseball players. That's insane. That's insane. And anybody who thinks that is insane. And I want those people in the safe. Is that fair to say? Because that's too much. There's no player that has that. There's no player that has that cachet. And no owner would sign off for that. And no president of baseball ops would sign off for that. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's just a bridge too far. Again. So that's who I'm putting in the safe. Get back to the conversation about the New York Mets. Ibby, I want to bring up this one. It was from a while ago from Mike Laverty, but I think it bears a little bit of discussing. Zach Gallen, reclamation project, just feels like a David Stearns move. Mike Laverty's not the only person who said this. A couple of people chimed in right around the same time. Zach Gallen, very talented pitcher, high upside pitcher, coming off a bad year. I don't know that I'd be upset if the Mets signed Zach Gallen. I don't think he checks the box of, ace number one, but again, how many aces are there really? Where do you lie on Zach Gallen if he takes a, 1+1 deal or a 3-year deal with an opt-out or whatever the case? Like, what is your thought? It's a guy we haven't talked about a lot, but I think as we sit here and we look at the Mets needs and we look at starting pitching and we talk about markets falling, it's kind of unfair to not bring this guy up.
Does Zach Gallen have a qualifying offer?
I think he does.
Again, he declined it at 22. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, to what you just said, I like the 1-1. Like I don't know if they're going to give that, allow him to potentially show out, lose the comp pit, lose the stuff and then lose the player potentially because he goes elsewhere the following year. I don't know if they're going to do that. So I don't know if that's going to be the player that they burn, the qualifying offer compensation on. Does he make sense? He could. He's been a little bit up and down recently. I know velocity was down too. But in terms of reclamation, it kind of makes sense. Like, it seems like it's up Stearns' alley. But I also think that's up Stearns' alley if it didn't have the qualifying offer attached to it. If it didn't, then I think that they'd be all over this 1,000%. But because it does, tells me that maybe not so much.
I think that if he doesn't have a qualifying offer, he probably has a better market, right? So it's
probably most likely.
And Joe DeMeo reminding everyone it's a second and a fifth and $1 million in international free agent money.
Trying to get more,
which they're trying to get back.
Trying to get back, yeah.
So I will say this. I think there's maybe a world where, and thank you, Joe, that's any qualifying offer for the Mets.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe a world where you go ahead and give, like, you have to get like 2 years from Zach Gallen. So maybe you give him an opt-out after the second year, something that makes the qualifying offer worth it a little bit more, where it's like, look, we'll give you a chance to reapproach the market, but we're not going to give you a chance to do that off one strong year. Now, that may not get it done, right? Like, that may not be enough, and that might be ultimately why he signed somewhere else. But it's tricky because the qualifying offer does muddy the waters a lot more, because you want to say, well, I only want to give up a qualifying offer if I'm going to give somebody a long-term deal, but I also don't want to give somebody who's 32 years old a 7-year deal. So then you wind up in the Michael King like bucket again, where it's like, I don't know, was any other team except the team that Michael King was already on going to give him that deal?
No,
probably not,
sense.
because of the qualifying offer.
Yep.
So, and this is where Joe says, I refuse to do a qualifying offer with someone who has a chance to be a free agent after 1 year. I'm with you. So I think if maybe you could find a way, and maybe this is where his market falls, where you say, look, Zach Gallen, we'll give you a 3-year deal for X amount of dollars. You get an opt-out after the second year. That's where I could see this going. But I don't know if that's where his market goes, because
the international money comes into play again, though, too. That whole thing.
It does. Just I thought this was the case too. The international money would be for the 2027 free agent period. What they're trying to get is the money they lost for Soto last year. That's what I thought was the case. So basically it would kind of be robbing Peter to pay Paul in a sense. The Mets would still need, the Mets would still need to trade for international bonus pool money to get Wandy Segan signed this year, because they're paying for their past sins in terms of qualifying offer free agents. If they were to sign a qualifying offer free agent, whether that's Zach Gallen or Cody Bellinger or whomever else, they would be forfeiting that money for next year. So just keep that in mind. Ibby, a lot of people are saying this sentiment right here, and I think it's interesting. Lazy Mary saying qualifying offers can get fucked. A lot of people saying put them in the safe. I do think the qualifying offers are going, and I mean, we may have touched on this very briefly like a couple weeks ago. A lot of people talking about what's going to happen in the next CBA. I think the qualifying offers are going to be changed, done away with, reassessed, because they're becoming problematic and very one-sided. And I think that's going to be a major talking point for the players union. The qualifying offer is not really good. I don't know. I don't know how else to say that more articulately.
Yeah, Joe bringing up here, they need to figure out a different way about it. The QO is beneficial for the teams losing the players. Like, look, I do agree. I think Carson just said it before in the comments. Like, it slows down everything. And of course, the higher end players are always going to say no to the QO, which still offers something where a team signing said player is going to have to give up a lot, depending on situation, like the Mets, obviously, with their penalties and things of that nature. So it kind of puts them in a bind. It makes them question certain things. And some people don't care. They just go about their business and do it anyway. But other ones are a lot more stingent and more disciplined. It's a big word for us Mets fans, since Will Salmon put that article out about David Stearns being a disciplined person. No, but I do think that it does bog down the entire process, and it does hurt a lot of people too, which sucks for the player, because we've seen guys who have the QO attached to them where they thought the market would be there for them, and because that QO is there, teams just sweated them out and nobody touched them, and they settled for a lot less than what they thought they were going to get, where they might have even just been better off taking that 1-year QO and then wash it the following year and gain that 22 million. So in general, it does suck.
Just use this as a thought exercise. How much of Pete Alonso's non-market last year do you, Ibby, forget about the Mets, forget about how much do you think was him coming off of a bad year versus the qualifying offer?
I don't think that there was much of a difference, honestly. And I think I've said that before too. I really don't. I don't, because when you are a first, I don't think the game pays first baseman, and I'm not going to use Vlad either, because Toronto had to go overboard to keep their star because nobody was taking their money, and he was younger and just worked.
He's also like 5 years younger than Alonso.
It's just, and unless you're Freddie Freeman, that's it, man. Like, you're not getting what you think you're going to get from the position, especially when you have these more analytically driven president of baseball ops that are sitting there saying that I don't need to pay a first baseman outside of a Freddie Freeman like the Dodgers did. Like, you're not seeing it. And like I said, to back up again, like, Toronto was a special case because they had to keep their superstar.
Let's be honest too, just talking about these two players who are very different in Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman is aging incredibly well, right? Like, he is enduring this contract, is proving so far to be very good. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is right-handed, not left-handed. He's got a different body type than Freddie Freeman, all this stuff. But both guys, Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Freddie Freeman, are better overall hitters and better overall players than Pete Alonso too, which is just a factor. You have to add that in. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it is league-wide. I think it is first base market. I think it is down year for Alonso, but the qualifying offer definitely played a part. For sure. Absolutely. So, Lazy Mary, the counterpoint. I think we're on the verge of Freeman's legs breaking down completely. Possible.
Does it matter though?
But does it matter?
If he can stand, as long as he can stand, he's going to get a hit. You know it is, whether it's against us or anybody. Freddie's incredible. Freddie's on his, well on his way to being a Hall of Famer.
I agree with Joe DeMeo. I don't think the qualifying offer is going to go away, but I do think something will have to change. And I think Odd Villain's saying this very well. Qualifying offer fucks everyone involved. I don't think it's great. Look, Ibby, there's a couple. We have a couple minutes to play with here. Not a ton of time. Yeah. We've touched on Imai. We've touched on Vientos. I want to spend a moment of time because we talked a little bit about where the Kyle Tucker market could be and all that stuff. I want to just talk about the Mets' seeming non-interest in Okomoto and if that surprises you. Surprises me a little bit. Now, we don't know if the contract comes out and it's bigger than we thought, then maybe that's part of it. But maybe they just don't believe in the player, which could also obviously be a factor. I just think he fits the team very well in terms of what they're looking for offensively, defensively, handedness, power potential, kind of across the board. So I'm a little surprised. Again, I only know what I read. I can't fly to Japan and watch him play, so I don't really know, and I wouldn't be able to make sense of it anyway because I'm not a baseball scout. But does it surprise you that the Mets seemingly are not interested in Okomoto? And of course, now we're talking about this 20 minutes after we end the show. Okomoto will probably sign with the Mets, but it's usually how it goes. But no, does it surprise you that there's seemingly not interest there?
To go back to what I said at the start of the show when we were talking in the beginning about this kind of stuff, it's alarming to me that the fans, whether it's Mets fans or just baseball fans across the board, are shocked by these things because we are told one thing through media, through people that are fed information by agents about said players. So we assume these things about said players when in reality, maybe these teams have more information than we do, have seen these things up close, and they just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Now, in terms of what we've seen, in terms of highlights, what we see on a stat sheet, we could say, oh, this guy seems to have a strong glove. Oh, this guy fits needs because we need third base, first base, DH. Like, this kind of fits very well. Like, Yeah, on paper it does, but maybe there's something more to it that we as fans are not privy to, which is why they're not in on said player. From all the things I just said, from what we are allowed to see, I thought, yeah, maybe he would make sense. But as time went on and I never heard anything, it made me question as if they were actually ever going to be involved. And I think the Boris stuff also weighs in on it as well. And if they were going to choose between dealing with Scott Boris, between Imai and Okomoto, like I thought that Imai made more sense from a needs perspective if they were going to pick a battle instead of going all in with both of them. So like I said, to bring it back to what we were talking about before, it's more so curious to me with the handedness that he is. Bringing it back to Vientos, are they more sold on just running with Vientos or going elsewhere via trade for a right-handed bat as opposed to paying Okamoto? So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, but this kind of brings me to my last question of the episode, which has been the kind of the last question that we've had every single week of this offseason, where Mets fans I don't know, Ibby, if we're getting to a point where the offseason is going to be satisfying to any Mets fan. And that's not to say that the Mets won't be a good team. It's not to say that Stearns doesn't know what he's doing or he overplayed his hand. And look, I've been on record, Ibby. The Mets sign Austin Hayes as their big go-to guy now and pair him with Polanco and Simeon, and they're like, that's our offense. I'm going to be...
No, that's bad.
I'm going to be livid.
No.
I say this right now on December 30th, 7:30 p.m., 7:28 p.m. on the East Coast. If that's the Mets moves, I'm going to be pretty as out on Stearns as I ever have been. But I think we're getting to a point right now where you said it before. Like, we talked about Bellinger for 2 seconds. There were people in the comments, I don't want Bellinger. Well, what do you want? What do you want them to do? We all want them to do something. We all want them to go ahead and add. And we know they're going to. The Mets are going to add. They can't even field a team right now. So this thought that like Stearns is done and they're going to play the kids. The kids aren't even all ready. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand what you've been watching. I don't think you've ever watched baseball. But there is something about if you don't want them to do A and you don't want them to do B, then what do you want and what is going to make you happy, I guess, is the question. Like, I don't know. I don't know where this goes. Like, is the only satisfying thing going to be if the Mets manage to get Kyle Tucker on a deal where he can opt out in 2 years? Is that going to be the only thing that satisfies people?
I don't think
that's crazy. It's holding out hope for something that is so singular.
I don't think that Mets fans at this point, from everything that I hear from people in spaces, how they tweet, everything that they put out, and it makes me sad because it shouldn't be this way, but I honestly think that people are so attached to names and the fact that we have money and that they're not spending said money on said big names, that they're equating names to success. Whereas I think that this team is trying to find success with the right ball players. And I think that that's unsexy at times. It can be very sexy, like a Juan Soto. That's sexy because it's Juan Soto. That's a piece that anybody should want. But if they go about this with certain players that aren't of said ilk, people are going to shit on it. And that's just the way it's going to be because this is New York. And until they see something, until the winning starts, they're not going to like it. But again, like I can't sit here and agree with the idea. And look, I'll gladly be proven wrong in this sense, and I'll let it play out. But I'm not going to be happy if Austin Hayes is playing left field because he mashes lefties, and, where Tyrone Taylor is starting in center field because we want to give Carson Bench some run in AAA first, and Mark Vientos is opening at DH while Polanco's at first, and that's my offense. Like, then I have a huge problem because that's not good enough. That's bad. So I will show my disgust if that is the case. But to this point, I still don't believe that that's going to be the case. But if it is, believe me, I will be the first one on the show to let people know that I don't like it.
And I'm not going to like that either. But I think there are some things we have to address, like Truman Quinn saying Soto and 7 prospects. Obviously joking, Soto and the 7 prospects. Like, that's not going to happen, though. Like, it's not going to happen. It can't happen. When we look at this one from Ethan, it's like one of the highest payrolls in baseball, and you're relying on rookies is a fucking joke. Now, look, again, we're all going to be upset if it's Austin Hayes and that's how they're going to war. I agree with that part of it, but Ibby, they're one of the highest payrolls in baseball, largely due to the fact that people not named David Stearns have given out bad contracts.
Yes.
And you want them to give out bad contracts?
Yes, that's what they want.
Like, that's what I don't understand. Now, look, we're all going to be unhappy. I will be unhappy. I want them to sign Cody Bellinger. I would give Cody Bellinger a 5-year deal. I would have given Pete Alonso a 5-year deal. I've said that. I don't want it to be Austin Hayes in left field, Tyrone Taylor in center, and Vientos at DH. I don't want that either. But they have a high payroll. They're giving $50 million to Juan Soto. Is anybody upset about that? I'm not. They're giving $35 million to Lindor. Is anybody upset about that? I'm not. Everybody wanted Sean Manaea back. They gave him the money. He sucks. Now what? People wanted to give Edwin Diaz money. They wanted to give Pete Alonso money. Nobody wanted Marcus Semien, but everybody would have told you, find a way to get out of Brandon Nimmo's deal. Find a way to get out of Jeff McNeil's deal. They're trying to not have this crazy high payroll and also rely on rookies. So I don't know what you want them to do. If David Stearns trades everybody and does rely on rookies, people will be livid, whether they're good or not. If David Stearns signs the wrong people, they're going to be livid too. But you know what? If David Stearns gave Pete Alonso a 6-year contract and Pete Alonso was never good again, people would still be mad. So I don't know what they want him to do. And this is it. I'll say my piece on this, and then you can say yours and we'll move on.
Yeah.
But like, I know Ken hates David Stearns, and I hate to even give this breath, but Stearns knows what he's doing. He's trying to destroy the New York Mets, period.
Stop it. Just stop it.
What, Ken?
Stop.
I know you
Ken,
don't like him.
Come on, man.
I know you don't like him, but Ibby, I'm only giving this breath because Ken's not the only person who feels this way. So my question is, why? Why do you feel that way? How could that be the thought? How? You truly think the guy's his goal is to sabotage his childhood team and also tarnish his own career and legacy in the process? Is that real? But people think this.
I know they do. And it's sickening that people think this way, which is why it's so few and far where you have calm and rational talk about these things, where you can have things that you like about something and things that you don't like. Like we're saying right now, we've been defending Stearns on things and understanding of things, but also understand that if I have Austin Hayes announced on opening days but is my starting left fielder, I have a problem. I have a huge problem with that, especially if there are not other things to better bolster the lineup. I'm not going to like it. But to think that a person is blatantly sabotaging something doesn't make any sense. Isn't these guys take these jobs to not only find success, but to work into the next contract that they're going to sign to remain and to continue making $10 million a year like Stearns is doing. People don't like this, even though this is what the Mets have needed for a long time. Not just so much of an exodus of talent, but just a cleansing, if you will, for starting over. You're upset because you didn't win. And John talked about this on his on walk-off whiskey on this past Friday, and I'm just going to reiterate the things because I feel the same way. Like, you're upset that the core didn't win. You wanted them to win. 24 was their shot to win. It didn't happen. Windows close all the time in baseball, in basketball, in football. And when those windows close, you do everything you can to try and reopen it, to try to get things moving and to become a winner moving forward. That's all that this is. You're angry because this team didn't win while those guys were here. Now they're gone, and you're extremely emotional because you don't know, because nothing has come in just yet. Again, people are going to complain that I'm saying, allowing time and this and that. Well, there's still, like I said, it's a slow, agonizing offseason for everyone in baseball. Nothing is happening. Every single star is still out there, minus the ones that you just lost, which brings it back to Joe's point. If people find term, they're going to jump on it. Limited amount of teams were willing to give out term to certain players to this point. So again, like, I get why you're upset, but you cannot allow this to run you and think that a man is blatantly trying to sabotage a team. Because with how, again, the changes in baseball also, he can't pull a Mike Elias here where he torpedoed things in Houston, how they torpedoed things in Houston when they got all those picks to build their infrastructure. Doesn't work that way anymore with the lottery. So again, there's no sabotaging here. Stop screaming that they're going to be a 70-win team, a 60-win team. I'm bookmarking all of your tweets, so don't worry. Like, just relax, please.
Joe DeMeo, they want these fans who don't like Stearns. They want Steve Cohen to have a higher payroll than the Dodgers. And then when the contracts are bad, it's because Stearns gave out those contracts. That's what they want.
Of course.
And that's true. It's all that. It's all just double speak.
Ken, I'll give you the platform again. Talk to me in spring training when Polanco misses the throw. Okay, can I talk to you in spring training when he makes a nice scoop? Can I do that when he makes a great play? Am I allowed? Like, is that allowed too, or is that not allowed? Like,
but here's what I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to pick on Ken, and I know we have to get out of here soon and but like, this is insane. Talk to me in spring training when Polanco misses a throw. Wait.
Have you watched Pete Alonso?
So Pete Alonso's biggest deficiency, full stop, is making throws. So bringing back Pete Alonso would have made you feel better. There's so many things you could argue for bringing back Pete Alonso. Hell, I've spent 2 years doing it, Ibby. And I've defended his defense. His hands, he has soft hands. He picks the ball great. He has good footwork around the base. Things about his defense that are good. You're going to tell me when Polanco misses a throw, when Pete Alonso missing a throw to Kodai Senga ended the Mets season? Or when Williams blows a 3-run save? What, Edwin Diaz has never blown a 3-run save?
Ooh, just think of Miami. Just think of Miami, man.
What are these things we're picking? Is this
the Phillies
just
game,
to make me angry?
Miami? Probably.
But when Polanco missed, like, Ibby, listen, if you're talking about Alonso versus Polanco, if you were like, talk to me when a home run would win a playoff game and you have Polanco up instead of Alonso, I mean, maybe then, even then, it's a bridge too far because it's if and wishes and it's all this stuff. But, like, you're picking things that, like, yeah, I know, Josh. I know. But it's just like, that's fucking insane. That's an insane thing to do. Every person. Yes, I do. No, you know what it is? You know what it is? You know what it is, Lazy? You know what it is? I have this thing. A lot of people say, a lot of people have told me in my life, a lot of people have said, Ibby, that I remind them vocally of Charlie Day.
That was a comment on TikTok that we got.
It was a comment on TikTok that I remind them of Charlie Day. Yes, because that is quite an octave. And it is because when I get angry, or when I get not even angry, when I get impassioned, I yell and my voice gets higher. So anyway, yes, that's That's what happens. Josh was saying, John, every episode should have walk-off whiskey just to deal with these takes. It should just be me sitting here just like reacting to takes from the show. Yeah, Charlie Day is a great comp, apparently.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Okay.
I mean, we got to get out of here, but before we do, we got to choose a comment of the day. So
I'm gonna let you pick. I can't pick. They're all about it. They're all about me. They're all about me. I can't pick. Okay. All right. I can't pick.
You're a hard marker.
Okay. Marker? I'm a hard marker. Okay. Okay. Get out of here with that. Okay. I'm not gonna. Okay.
Oh my god. Like there's so many. I don't know which one I want to pick. We unstarred a couple too, but damn.
You guys got to do call-ins once a month. I don't know if I could take it.
Oh my god.
I could take it.
God bless the people that do call-ins, because that's.
I want to do. I know we have to go. I want to do call-ins on walk-off whiskey. I do, but oh god damn it, there's.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one. This one's not as good, but it's good.
Eastern European cover.
Ibby, you got to pick. It's up to you.
Like, am I picking a buzzer beater again with Danger here, like we did last week with Carson?
It's up to you, man.
I'm
not putting.
Do I go with the first one that popped me, which was Lazy's? Oh man, this is tough. And then Tank came in with the Rocky one. Oh my, the Joe one, the Yugoslavian one popped me big too. Man, the helium one was funny.
I'm not putting it all on you.
God, this is hard.
This is a show decision, and I support whichever one. I can't pick because they're all about me. Every single one of them is about me. Sal wants to know if I can do a Mad Dog impression. Not really. I don't know.
No.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I think it's just like a dumbass.
You know what? I'm gonna go with.
This is like
Francesa. This is dead air. Look at that stats.
It's when it's when he does the
12, 7, 8, 47, 2, 5. That's all it is.
This is how we're ending the show for the year when he does
coming off the rails here.
Yeah, he picks the winners and losers when like the NFL schedule drops for like the Jets and the Giants, and he's like, all right, Patriots, that's a loss. Okay, Buffalo, that's a loss. Broncos, that's a loss. Okay. Steelers, that's a loss. All right. Jaguars, definitely a loss. Trevor Lawrence, come on.
Trevor Lawrence,
come on. Miami, Miami, they'll win. Okay, they'll win in Miami. All right. Okay.
I'm gonna go with. We're gonna go crown comment. I'm gonna go with. Where are we? Comments.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Lazy, and the reasoning because I feel this really kickstarted what the day ended up becoming in the chat. So because it led to so much great, I'm going to award the one that truly kicked it off, which then allowed us to get the Yugoslavian one and the rest. Like everyone was fantastic. And this, I love this. That's becoming like a competition for everyone in the chat, which is what I was hoping it would be. So I'm going to give it to Lazy this week because it kickstarted everything. So to give a recap, we have 3 so far. We have it where Odd Villain has taken home the inaugural one, followed by Carson. Lazy. I am keeping track of these things. And like I said, maybe at some point during the year, I'll do like a giveaway for someone who's had the most. I'm going to keep track of everything. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm going to get out of here on this because we're running late. 2025 was fantastic, guys. I loved it from a show perspective. The Mets year, obviously not that great. disappointing one, frustrating one, hard to watch, boring, all the things that we don't want as baseball fans. And there's a lot of change on the horizon. 2026 is clearly going to bring that, and I do believe that an avalanche of moves is coming. It's just a matter of when, because they have to happen. No matter how angry you are with this fan base, or David Stearns, or Steve Cohen and his casino, all the nonsense, all the chatter, all the gossip that we put into the safe, not needed. Focus on the ball, and just like I said, just allow things to play out. It's a slow-moving process. This is a tough year for baseball because they're all clearly monitoring what's going to be going on with the CBA. We want action. We're passionate. I get that you all love your team and you want what's best for it and you want to see a winner coming up on 40 years. I get that wholeheartedly. But be patient, as I constantly say on this show. I'm thankful for all of you. 2025 was great for growth for us, not only on the show. We're closing on 1,500, but also on TikTok. We're closing in on 1,300 followers there, which has been we've had over 1,000 new followers on TikTok this year. So thankful for that as well. There are people that are rocking with us over there. Shout out to the people over on Reddit too that continue to put us over as a show that they listen to amongst all the bigger name shows. Shout out to you, Pantrice, who's been in our chat. Shout out to True Misery. I don't know who you are, True Misery, if you're in here right now, but you've been saying our name a lot.
Joe Beningo.
I don't know who you are, True Misery, but shout out to you for the love that you've been showing our show over on Reddit. So thank you for that. And, keep rocking with us. We're going to keep on growing, keep on making this thing the best that we can. And most of all, keep having fun. Let's go Mets. Happy New Year to everyone. And that's all that I got. So thank you so much.
Ibby, look, you said a lot of I don't need to rehash it. I don't need to say it with my own spin. We speak for the show, but it has been great. This show is a ton of fun for us. And every year it gets better. And that is true. Like every single year that Ibby and I have done this show, it's gotten better because of the people that are involved in it, the people that, jump in and do what you guys do. It's gotten larger. We've put in a lot of work on our end. And we care about it. We care about doing the show. We care about all of you guys enjoying the show. Like there is nothing that makes me happier than watching somebody comment. Like we see the comments before the show goes live. They're on the sidebar. And we see like comments come in right before we start. And then that same person, and there's several, but that same person is commenting here 2 hours later at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Watching us for 2 hours when you could do so much else. There's so much good Mets content out there. There's so much good stuff to watch on streaming services that have nothing to do with sports. And we all have our other interests and things that we like. So sincerely, I know that people think I'm an asshole and sometimes I feed into that, but like sincerely, the people who watch this show, the people who listen to our show, if you're only on the audio podcast side, like we wouldn't continue to do this show if it wasn't for the people on the other side that watch and that listen and that comment and that appreciate the fact that we put, the effort into this. So, it means a lot and, we appreciate it and we really, really do. So happy New Year to everybody. I love when people say this because it's Armand, John, you're our asshole, which I appreciate, but it's just such a funny thing to be like, that guy, he's my asshole. You're like, what? But anyway,
oh my God.
Really, really appreciate it. We both do. And we look forward to better Mets baseball in 2026.
Yes.
And we
better brand.
Forward to continuing to grow this show in 2026. So we appreciate everybody. Happy New Year. It's a little bit
Happy
early.
New Year, everybody.
And let me just say this, obviously I have a whiskey show. I like to have a drink. Be careful when you go out.
Be responsible.
Have fun, but be safe because we want everybody back here, at the start of 2026 as well. With that said, we will be doing, I'll be doing Walk Off Whiskey on Friday, 7 p.m. East Coast. See you there. Next week, Ibby and I will be back in our regular time slot, 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? By that point, maybe there'll be something Mets related. We can actually talk about something substantive, but have a happy, healthy, safe New Year's. I'll see you Friday. Me and Ibby back on Wednesday. If you missed any of the show, you can watch the replay on Substack, on Twitter, or on YouTube. And if you can't do that, in about an hour or so, this will drop as an audio podcast on Amazon Music, Apple, and Spotify. See you in a couple days. See you next year. I'm John. That's Ibby. Till Mets do us part.